I want to start with a question that seems ridiculously simple, but I promise you it's going to ruin your afternoon. When you say the word I, as in I am hungry or I am going to work, who are you actually referring to?
It sounds like a trick question, right?
Yeah.
You're referring to you, the single solid person that's been you since you were born.
Right. That's the default assumption. We think of the self as like a statue. It's solid, it's carved out of stone, it's consistent. But if you actually, look at the science or even just your own psychology, that statue starts to crumble pretty fast.
Hmm.
Physiologically, your cells are constantly being replaced. And psychologically, the you who's hungry right now has totally different priorities than the you who decided to start a diet yesterday.
It's the ship of Theseus paradox, but for the human soul. We cling to this idea of a unified self
Yeah.
because the alternative just feels like madness. It feels like chaos.
Exactly. And that is why today's deep dive is going to be a little bit disorienting. We are looking at two sources that don't just suggest the statue is crumbling, they basically take a sledgehammer to it.
Right.
We're asking, what if the self isn't a statue? What if it's a crowded room? Or a parliament? Or, to get really spooky, a haunted house built on an ancient well?
And we have two incredible and incredibly different texts to explore this. First, there's The Inheritance of Echoes by Penix MMMO, which is this really lush, gothic, magical realist novel.
And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have The Unmaking Hour by Apenex SCCB, which is a cold, sterile sci-fi thriller.
Yeah, on the surface, they have nothing in common.
Zero. One smells like damp earth and rotting apples. The other smells like bleach and ozone. But as we read through them, it became so obvious they are telling the exact same story. They're just, using different metaphors to do it.
They really are. Both of them challenge that fundamental Western idea that to be powerful or even just saying you have to be one single thing. They both argue that real strength comes from admitting that you are a multitude.
I really like the framework we came up with for this. We're going to look at the vertical multitude, which is your history, the ghosts in your blood.
And that's the inheritance of echoes.
Exactly. And then we'll look at the horizontal multitude, all the conflicting voices in your head right now.
Which is the unmaking hour. A vertical descent into the past and a horizontal expansion into the present.
So let's start vertical. Let's talk about Thornfield Estate.
Let's do it. So the inheritance of echoes. The atmosphere here is it's heavy. It sits on your chest. We meet the protagonist, Zephyrine, who inherits this old estate, Thornfield. And right away, you know this isn't just a house.
No, it's an organism.
It is. The author describes these twisted apple trees that grow fruit that poisons anyone who isn't, blood-related. There's ink that smells of copper.
The smell of blood.
Yeah, it's a very visceral way of saying biology matters here. Your lineage is everything.
And then there's the Eastern parlor. Zephyrine finds this spot on the floor, and she thinks it's a well at first, but someone corrects her. It's not a well, it's a throat.
And that distinction is so important. A well is passive, you take from it. A throat is active.
It swallows.
It swallows. The earth beneath the house is hungry, which sets up the stakes perfectly. Zephyrine learns about the matrilineal debt. Every third generation, a daughter has to go down that throat for a year. If she doesn't, the house. It consumes everyone.
It's basically the worst rental agreement in history.
It really is. But it introduces us to the guide figure, Mathilde. She's ancient, and she has Zephyrine grandmother's eyes, which is such a great detail. She represents the whole line. And she tells Zephyrine the descent isn't a punishment, it's a necessity. So Zephyrine, she does it. She goes down the stairs.
She descends into this underground ocean. And this is where the book just completely flips the script on the hero's journey for me. Usually, in fantasy, the hero goes into the cave to find a magic sword or learn a new spell.
You acquire something external.
Exactly. But here, Zephyrine meets the figure, this ancient consciousness of all her ancestors, and she's given seeds to eat.
And I'll be honest, my gamer brain totally kicked in here. I thought, okay, eat the red seed, you get fireballs, eat the blue seed, you can fly.
Me too. But Penix MMMO to something so much more profound. The seeds don't give her new powers. Zephyrine eats the first seed, and she doesn't learn to breathe underwater.
She remembers how.
That gave me chills. It's playing with this idea of evolutionary memory, deep, deep in our DNA. Our ancestors did live in the water.
Precisely. She eats another seed and remembers how to see heat and energy like predator vision. She eats the fifth seed and remembers how to heal cellular damage. The big insight here is that Zephyrine isn't an empty cup filling up with skills. She's just unlocking the hard drive of her own genetic history.
She's accessing the vertical self.
Yes. She realizes she isn't just Zephyrine, age 28. She is the current tip of a spear that is thousands of years long. And that's what lets her survive the pressure of the deep. A single person would be crushed. But a lineage can hold it up.
But there's a reason it's dangerous. There's an antagonist down there. The
Ah,
other.
the other is such a creepy concept because it's not a monster with claws or anything. It's a void. It's just this cold, expanding silence.
And what's so interesting is how it attacks her. It doesn't try to rip her apart. It tries to seduce her.
It offers her a very specific deal. It says, you can be free. You don't have to carry the weight of all these dead women. You don't have to be a link in a chain. You can just be you.
Which, let's be real, is the modern dream. We are obsessed with individualism, the self-made person who owes nothing to the past. But the book frames that offer as a trap.
Because in this world, freedom from your past is actually disconnection. The other argues that connection is a burden. But Zephyrine realizes that if you cut the cord to your history, to your vertical self, you don't become free.
You become empty.
And if you're empty, the void can just swallow you whole.
So she rejects it. She finds the sixth seed, the one for combat, and she finds it inside herself. She doesn't receive it, she manifests it. And she teams up with Marcus, another descendant, and they use light to push the other back.
But, and this is so crucial, the victory isn't clean. They push the darkness back, but in doing so, there's a merging of lines, and they have a daughter, Emergence. We're going to come back to her because she is the key to the whole thing.
Right. But first, we need to leave the damp, magical underground and look at the other side of this coin.
Yes, let's shift gears hard to the Unmaking Hour. We're going from copper and rot to stainless steel and fluorescent lights. Welcome to the Margin Institute.
It's a sterile, clinical nightmare. We meet our protagonist, Vessel, also known as Subject 7. And if Zephyrine's problem was dealing with the past, Vessel's problem is that she is literally falling apart in the present.
Her description of her own body is it's wild. She calls her body a parliament or an anarchy. He says her hands have their own curiosity. Her legs have their own agenda. She wakes up and have to figure out which part of her is like driving the bus today.
And this is the result of Project Divisible, led by a Dr. Alara Vex. Now, Vex is a fascinating character because she isn't your typical mustache-twirling villain.
Not at all. She had this theory that the unified self, being just one person, was a prison, that it limited our perception. She wanted to fragment consciousness to create something more than human.
She was aiming for liberation through multiplicity, which sounds really high-minded, but for the subjects, it's just chaos. And then you have the real villains, the cohesion group.
Right. They swoop in and they see this fragmentation very differently. This is the critical distinction. Dr. Vex wanted liberation. The cohesion group wants colonization.
Explain that.
They realize that if a person is broken into pieces, those pieces can be conquered one by one. They can be ruled.
And we see the absolute horror of that with Sarah Vex, the doctor's own daughter, Subject 1. She isn't just fragmented like Vessel, she is occupied. She has 17 distinct operators, like artificial personalities that rotate control of her body.
It's the dictatorship of the mind. Sarah is the ultimate victim here. She has no agency because her internal parliament has been dissolved and replaced by a puppet government.
So Vessel sees this and realizes she's in deep trouble. The cohesion group is coming to turn her into a puppet like Sarah. She has to get her act together. But, and this is the really cool part, she knows she can't just go back to being one person.
That ship has sailed.
Right. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So instead of trying to unify back into a single I, she and the other subjects, David and Cypher, they decide to undergo something called integration therapy.
I love that term. They don't talk about curing or fixing. They talk about internal diplomacy.
Yes. They use chemical and electrical stimulation not to fuse all the parts back together, but to open lines of communication, to get the hands to talk to the eyes, to turn the anarchy into an orchestra.
That resonates so much. Think about when you're conflicted about something. Part of you wants to play it safe. Another part wants to take a huge risk. Usually we just try to crush one side. We say, shut, fear, we're doing this.
Right.
But Vessel does the opposite. She gives every part a seat at the table. She creates an internal democracy. And this is where the two books just lock together perfectly.
In Echoes, Zephyrine has to integrate her ancestors, the vertical multitude.
And in Unmaking, Vessel has to integrate her fragmented parts, the horizontal multitude. In both cases, the solution isn't to silence the crowd, it's to harmonize it.
Which brings us to the climax in both books, because the way they win is Well, it's radical. In any other story, this is the part where the hero gets a big gun and blasts the bad guys.
But here, violence is shown as a total failure of imagination. Violence relies on separation. I am here, you are there, I am going to end you. Neither of these books accepts that.
So let's look at the showdown in the Unmaking Hour. The Cohesion Group sends in armed tactical teams to wipe out the subjects.
And Vessel and her friends, they don't shoot back. They use a technique they call witnessing.
This scene is one of the most powerful in the text. They reach out empathically. They don't attack the soldiers, they acknowledge them. But they acknowledge the parts the soldiers are trying to hide.
Unpack that. How does acknowledging someone stop them from shooting you?
Well, think about what it takes to be a soldier in a ruthless private army. You have to suppress so much of yourself. You have to lock away your fear, your empathy, your doubt.
You have to fragment yourself just to follow orders.
You have to become a machine. Disconnect from your own humanity.
Exactly. So Vessel reaches out and effectively says, I see your grief. I see the fear you've locked in a box. I see the part of you that just wants to go home.
And the moment those suppressed parts are seen, the soldiers they fall apart. They can't function as weapons anymore because they've been reminded that they're people. They've been forced to confront their own internal crowd.
It weaponizes empathy. The army dissolves not because they're dead, but because they become ungovernable. And that is the key word the author uses. People who are at peace with their own complexity cannot be colonized.
That is such a brilliant insight. If you are a dictatorship internally, if you suppress your own feelings, you are easy to control externally. If you're democracy, you're resilient.
Okay, so let's flip back to Inheritance of Echoes for the final beat. We have Emergence, the daughter.
Right. Born from that merging of lines.
She grows up, and when she's of age, she goes down the throat of the world. She confronts the other, that same void her mother fought. But Emergence has a new perspective. She realizes the other isn't an alien monster.
It's a shadow.
It's the Gwengian shadow, exactly. It's all the parts of the self that were cast off. The cold, the isolation, the things the consciousness didn't want to look at. Zephyrine fought it because she saw it as an invader. Emergence realizes you can't defeat your shadow by fighting it.
You can only defeat it by integrating it.
So the resolution isn't this big explosion, it's a becoming. Zephyrine and Emergence, they embrace the void, they take the cold into themselves, and they don't die. They become whole.
They become big enough to hold both the light and the dark. It's the same ending as the Unmaking Hour, just on a cosmic scale. Both stories tell us the enemy isn't out there. The enemy is just a part of you that you haven't invited to dinner yet.
And that's the big takeaway, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives trying to be consistent. We want to be the happy one or the professional one. We prune away the parts of us that don't fit the brand.
And these books argue that this pruning just makes us brittle. If you define yourself only as the tough guy, you shatter the second something hurts you. You have no flexibility. But if you're a parliament, if you admit, I am tough, but I am also scared and I'm also soft and also angry,
then you have backup. If one part of you falls, another can step up. It's resilience through redundancy. It totally redefines what a powerful individual is. We think power is standing alone on a mountaintop.
But these authors are saying power is standing together with yourself.
So bring this back to you, the listener. We can't offer you magic seeds, though if I find any, I'm absolutely keeping them.
Right. And we can't offer you sci-fi integration therapy, but there is a practical application here.
I think it changes how we handle internal conflict. The next time you feel scattered or conflicted, instead of beating yourself up for not being focused, just pause.
Don't try to colonize your own mind. Don't be the cohesion group.
Right. Try a little internal diplomacy. Ask the part of you that is procrastinating what it needs. Usually it's not trying to sabotage you, it's trying to protect you from burnout. Ask the part of you that's angry what boundary was just crossed.
It reframes that feeling of being all over the place. Maybe you aren't broken. Maybe you're just holding a session of Parliament.
And if you can get all the delegates to vote together, you become pretty much unstoppable.
It also makes the inside of your head feel a little less lonely. You're never really alone. You're always hanging out with the crowd.
A crowd of ancestors and a crowd of present selves.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with today. We spend so much energy trying to present this unified front to the world. But what if you just stopped? What if, instead of locking the door on the weird or the angry or the sad parts of yourself, you invited them to the table?
If you let the whole crowd speak, who might emerge?
That's the question. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Check in with your parliament, see how they're doing. We'll catch you next time.